Hey there! In this video tutorial we're going to explore punctuation and look at what punctuation is, what it does, and how to write it. So let's jump into it. Okay, so listen to this little part from the story Why Frog and Snake Can't Be Friends. He popped way up into the air, somersaulted and came down whop. Can you do that, Snake? It's called the frog hop. You see, punctuation is something that writers use to make it easier for anyone who reads it. So in this case, as I'm the one reading it, it's making it easier for me to understand what it is that I'm reading. And it also gives me a chance to take a breath before the next thought begins. Or it might also be that whoever wrote it wants to create a dramatic effect. It also helps to group ideas. And allow intonation, which means you can alter or change your voice. So for example, I might want to use a slightly higher tone at the end when reading a question, but a lower one when reading a normal sentence. Do you get what I'm saying? So punctuation is a tool that is used by writers for readers to make it easier to read and understand. I keep using that word, punctuation, but what is punctuation? What am I actually talking about? Do I mean to arrive somewhere on time? No. That would mean that I'm punctual, and my parents might disagree with that. Punctuation includes things like commas, quotation marks, apostrophes, full stops, question marks, exclamation marks, or points. Now that's a pretty big list of punctuation right there. And there's actually even more than that, but we're actually only going to look at the last three that I mentioned. The full stop, the exclamation mark, and the question mark. Now, as you can see here, a full stop means exactly that. Stop. Let's do a little stop sign. The sentence is finished, so now it's time to take a little breath and then we can continue reading. An exclamation mark or exclamation point shows strong feeling like surprise or anger or joy. It's like shouting or raising your voice. And like with the full stop, it also means that the sentence is finished. And a question mark shows that the sentence is actually a question, so you'll probably use that slightly higher tone or changing your voice at the end of the sentence that I talked about just before. And just the same as with the full stop and the exclamation mark, the question mark also means that the sentence is finished. And because each of them means that the sentence is finished, they also mean that the next sentence must start with a capital letter or an uppercase letter. So they do a few things, don't they? They tell you what sort of sentence it is, if you need to change your voice, and I mean the tone of your voice. They also tell you to have a little rest and take a breath, as well as if what you are reading is how someone is feeling or how they're talking. And the last thing they do is make the sentence start with a capital letter. Okay, so now we know what punctuation is, and we know what it does. But how do you write it? Let me just change the background here to some lined paper. Okay, now, the full stop is a dot. But where on the line do you put that dot or that full stop? Is it up here? Is it here in the middle? Or is it here on the line? Yes, that's right, it's here on the line. Alright, now, let's look at the exclamation mark. Now, the exclamation mark reminds me of a baseball bat and ball. The baseball bat, starts with a line from the top that goes straight down, and the dot or the baseball is sitting on the line. And a question mark, to me, reminds you of a hook with a little piece of it that's sort of broken off at the bottom. So again, like with the exclamation mark, you start at the top, but this time you curve it up and a bit to the right, and you bring your pencil down and then a bit to the left, and then you straighten up as you go down the page, and then you stop, and like with the exclamation mark, you put the little dot or the broken part sitting on the line. Now, have you noticed that all three of them, the full stop, the exclamation mark, and the question mark, all have a dot in them? Why is that? Well, that's because, as I said before, each of them means that the sentence is finished. So there is one more thing that I want to show you before we finish, and that's capital letters, or uppercase letters. So whenever a sentence finishes with a full stop, exclamation mark, or a question mark, the next sentence always starts with a capital letter. A capital letter is a big letter or an uppercase letter. So for example, a little a looks like this, and a big A looks like this. Another example is with the letter B. So a little b looks like this, and a big B looks like this. So the first letter of the next sentence after full stop, exclamation mark, or question mark must be a big letter. So let's look again at that little bit of writing that I showed you at the start that didn't have any punctuation in it, from the story Why Frog and Snake Can't Be Friends. But this time, we're going to add in the punctuation that we've covered. Now, I've already typed it up, just so it's a bit easy to read, and I've also included the punctuation that we haven't looked at today, such as commas, quotation marks, and apostrophes. So what I'm going to do now is add in the full stops, exclamation marks, and question marks, as well as any capital letters at the start of the sentences. Because remember, as I've said multiple times, every sentence starts with a capital letter. Okay, so we need a capital H or an uppercase H at the start, because it's a new sentence. Then we put in our exclamation mark after WOP. The next sentence then starts with a capital because it's a new sentence, so capital C, and a question mark at the end after snake because it's a question. Can you do that, snake? Then the next sentence, again, new sentence, so it starts with a capital I, and then a full stop at the end because it's the end of the sentence and time to have a breath. Now, the hardest thing with English punctuation is that the punctuation appears at the end of a sentence. So sometimes you might not realize it's a question or statement or whatever it is, a feeling or something, until you get to the end and you see the punctuation. And then what do you do? What do you have to do then? That's right, you go back and you reread it. Of course, it'd be a lot easier if they had the punctuation at the start, like they do in some other languages, like Spanish, but they don't.